Hey everybody, it's me Sandra. Welcome back to my channel. I looked at my YouTube channel last night and I saw that the live stream that I did stay, so I'm really happy about that because I didn't want to have to repeat myself. I'm on my iPhone, so I can't like make really long videos, and it's kind of hard because I'm looking this way because the camera's that way, so it's hard, like, because if I put it the other way, you guys won't see the full screen. So what I wanted to talk about today was, I wanted to talk about when I had gotten diagnosed with scleroderma. Back in 2001, I started getting, it was right after 9/11, and I have family in New York, so I had went to Thanksgiving in November in 2001. And I went to visit my family. So here I am living in Las Vegas. I'm originally from New York, and I was raised on Long Island. So I moved to Las Vegas in '94. So I was visiting my family, and I hadn't been around cold weather since I left, New York. So my body, was adapted to living in desert life. So I went to Vegas, and I remember the first time that my body, my back and everything was really hurting me. I stayed at my friend's house and I slept in her son's bed. Her son has one of those platform beds, so I thought maybe that's why my back was hurting me, because it wasn't, a very comfortable bed. It was a kid's platform bed. And it was really cold out there, and all I brought was a leather jacket. So then I went to my cousin's house, and I didn't understand why was my body hurting me so badly, like really badly, like my whole, like the way we feel with scleroderma, my whole back was hurting me, and all the joints in my body and stuff were hurting me. And I remember talking to my cousin about it, my cousin Rick and his wife Sylvia, and telling them, I feel like I have to go to the hospital because I don't know why I'm hurting so badly like this. It was just very painful, and it wasn't getting any better. So when I got back to Vegas, it just got worse after that. I was working normally and everything, and all of a sudden my hands were starting to get really itchy, and they were hurting me a lot. Now, back, rewind to my childhood. Most of my life, I had some kind of pain. I was in sports a lot. I played hard like a boy because I had brothers. So I had a lot of problems with my knees. I played gymnastics and track, and I played baseball, not softball. I played baseball, and I played hockey and all those kind of sports, but I was raised in New York. And the cold used to bother me a lot. Like a lot. I used to always be shivering. My ex-husband and I used to argue a lot over this whole cold thing, because he would tell me, because he was an ex-boxer, if he had the heat on too hot, it was making him stuffy. And meanwhile, I'm freezing in the car, and he wasn't even like cold. If it was up to him, he would have never turned the heat on. So I had these pains my whole life. My mom and my dad, I know my parents, they loved me as far as that I was their child, but they never took me to the doctor. Never, ever took me to the doctor. Like, they took me to get my shots and stuff when I was a kid. Like, I can remember that back. I can remember getting shots and going to New York City with my aunt and stuff like that, and my mom to get my shots. But as far as whenever I had a problem medically, they never took me to the doctor. I told them that my knees hurt, and I remember even once that I fell asleep, and I fell asleep like this. And in the morning, I couldn't bring my hands back down, and they hurt so bad. And then I developed like this, a bump on my wrist. And I showed my mom, that I had this bump. And she didn't take me to the doctor to it, but I did. She had my mom was a hairstylist, so she had a lot of clients from, all different walks of life. And she had this one client that was, I guess, married to a doctor. So my mom comes home and tells me, Well, my friend told me that the same thing happened to her, and when she went to the doctor took a book and slammed it. Uh, you're telling this to a little kid that this doctor, if you take me to the doctor, they're going to take a book and they're going to slam it to pop it in. Of course, I didn't want to go to the doctor then, so they let it be. They didn't take care of me. Even my room was built. It was an addition to the house, and it was always cold. I don't know if they had space heaters back then. I'm assuming they did. I mean, I'm not that old. We're talking about, the 70s and 80s. So I'd ask them, that I was freezing, and I would be sleeping with like multiple thick blankets and stuff like that. And they never got me a space heater or anything like that. So I was always cold. My parents didn't have, I guess, as a kid, you don't realize when your parents don't have much. You just know that this is the way you were brought up. So, we, as far as like snow and stuff, we didn't have snow boots. We had like my mom's boots where we put layers and layers and layers of socks on it. I'm sure a lot of people from my generation from back there in New York can relate, especially if you were Hispanic or black. You didn't have that much. It was very segregated. Even though I grew up in a white neighborhood, everything was very segregated in New York, and it still is. So my parents, I was always cold, always achy, and no one did anything about it. They let it be. So now we're going back, so I had many times I had gone to the doctor and I had told them there's something wrong with my hands. This is before it got like really bad. I'm talking about like when I was married. So in the 90s, I'd go to the doctor and I had back problems. They had always they put me in physical therapy. They always had excuses for everything, always because, you just had a baby and your bones, contract out to fit a baby. And when they come back in on your back, they don't come back that stable. All a bunch of bullshit now that I know what's going on. They had no idea what was going on with me. And especially if they can't see it, if they can't physically see what's wrong with you, they automatically assume that it's in your head or that you're seeking pills, medication, and stuff. You would think in today's times that doctors wouldn't be like that. I can understand the whole pill situation, but to think that if you don't see it, it doesn't exist, because I was going for years. I'm 54 now. I'm 50. Ooh, don't rush it, Sandra. I'm 53 now. So they were doing this to me, and I was going in my 20s and everything, and they were just telling me they had no explanation on why I was hurting the way I was hurting, and they just kept pushing it off. They kept telling me it's this, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. My hands was happening to me, my problems with my hands were happening to me even when I lived in New York. So even back when I was in my 20s, which now I know it's Raynaud's what I have, but back then I didn't know it was Raynaud's, and my hands would be, I was thinking it was when I was drinking alcohol or having something really salty the night before. That's what I was starting to think that it was. So that's what happened. Like my hands, I would drink, and then the next day my hands would swell up. Not swell up like really, really fat, but they would swell up enough that it was noticeable and felt very uncomfortable. And so I had this problem for a long time. But when it came out after I came back from New York, what it was doing was something that I'd never seen before. They were getting really itchy and swelling up, and then they were changing colors. They would get white when they were really, really cold, and blue, and then you could literally start seeing when the blood was coming back to them, they would start turning red. My hands were fine back then. My hands were, normal. They were straight. There was nothing going on with them except for that. Even when I was pregnant for my son was born in 96. So even when I was pregnant for him, I'm pretty sure I already had scleroderma because his pregnancy was really difficult on my body. Completely different from when I had my daughter. I had my daughter in 92, and I worked out all the way until a Friday, and then I had her on a Sunday. With my son, he was considered high risk because they said his umbilical cord wasn't coiled, that it was straight, so that if he leaned against it, he might lose oxygen supply. So pregnancy is nerve-wracking enough, and then I had that, and I was really scared. So they would, last trimester, I would go every week, and it was nice. I got to see him. So what happened was that after my son, before my son was born, I was getting like, my body was just hurting me a lot. When I had my son, I was in long labor. Like, it started early in the afternoon when I was with my daughter, and I was already 2 weeks late. And I went to a place called Club Fun Time, which was like a Chuck E. Cheese thing with the tunnels. So I figured if I like go in the tunnels with my daughter, maybe just to bring it on, and it did, but I didn't know that I was in labor. My husband at the time was working, so I'm up there and I felt it, and I went to get my mail, and because I was in a new development, so the mailman wasn't coming yet. It was at the post office. I remember being slumped over in the post office because I was in labor and I had no idea. Came home, laid in bed with my daughter. She took care of me all day, and she was a little girl at the time. She was only 3 years old. She was only 3 years old, so she was helping me. And then my son, when my son was born, his labor was so painful for me. You know, I begged for an epidural, and I didn't take any drugs, nothing with my daughter. So this was the big difference with my son. So afterwards, my arms were, when I was in the hospital, they were like checking my pulse and all kinds of stuff, and they were saying that my veins, that my circulation wasn't that good, so they were literally shooting saline into my IV. They were saying to open up my veins. So nobody was checking anything. So, you know, and I used to feel it. I used to feel the cold going through my veins. When I came home and my son was like, a few weeks old, my arms were starting to hurt me. Now, I'm not a first-time mother. This was my second child. So when I go to the doctor and I tell them this, they're telling me, oh, it's because you're holding on to a baby. And I don't know why, that's why it's bothering you. That's why your arms are hurting you and everything like that, and blah, blah, blah. Before that, when I was pregnant for my son still, I had made chicken marsala for my son. My husband and I, and my daughter. And the next day, my hands had swelled up really badly. So I went to my GYN, my OB-GYN, and she tried to tell me that the reason why my hands were swollen and itchy and all that kind of stuff was because I had chicken marsala, which was very salty, and that's what it did to my hands. And then she told me at the same time that to drink a gallon of water a day. Now, anybody knows that when you're pregnant, you already go to the bathroom a lot. So to drink a gallon of water a day, and that was supposed to help my circulation. No, these were all signs that there was something wrong and nobody was giving a damn. So now my hands were getting worse to the point that I had gotten so sick that I just decided to just go to the doctor's office because I didn't know what was going on with me. It took until my hands were that bad before they tested me and they checked my ANA numbers. I always went to the doctor as an adult, so I had no idea why or now are they checking something when they should have checked a long time ago. And that's when it came out that I had possibly lupus. And I remember the paper said lupus with a question mark. They didn't know what it was. So they said that I had to go see a rheumatologist. So that was back in December. I couldn't see my rheumatologist until March because that's how backed up the appointments were. By the time I saw my rheumatologist in March, I had full-blown gangrene in both my hands. My hands were I was telling all my friends, and at the time I was working in Las Vegas in a club, I would tell my friends, I don't know what's going on with my hands, and I would show people, and, I would show all kinds of people, anybody who would listen to me, my hands and stuff. skin was starting to come off on it and everything like that. The doctor told me when I finally did see him, as soon as I walked into his office, he said, "You have gangrene in both your hands." So thank God I did finally get to see him. But again, like I said, this wasn't until March. So I'm working, trying to take care of my kids with these painful hands. One of my memories of it is I used to do my daughter's hair every day before she went to school. And I was putting up her hair and the rubber band snapped back onto my fingertips. It felt like, no lie, it felt like a razor blade just sliced across my finger. And I remember telling my daughter, "I guess you're gonna have to wear your hair down today." And I was really sad because I thought, my daughter's a little girl. She's only 4 years old and I can't do her hair anymore. And now I was divorced. I had left my husband before I had gotten sick. I had left my husband when my daughter was, and my son was 16 months old, and my daughter was 4. So I left him and I was all on my own now, even though he was living not too far from me and he was always in my children's life and stuff. I myself didn't have anybody to lean on because he was already married to somebody else and she was very jealous of me and my children, so I couldn't have him there with me all the time. I didn't have him there to lean on, to cry to. I didn't have anybody actually. My parents, told them what was going on and stuff. My mother, they acted concerned, but none of them ever came out to help me. None of them ever came out to see if I needed help. And I'll never forget that. I will never forget that. This is why I am the way I am. Like I always, I'm there for people. Even if I don't know you that well, if you need somebody, I'm there for you because I know how it feels to not have somebody there for you. So from that time on, it just progressed more and more and more. I started getting short of breath. I couldn't really walk that well after a while, and it was hard because I worked at a club and I had to wear heels and stuff, and I had to take some time off of work. My ex-husband paid my mortgage for a few months so I could get myself back together again, which you knew was never going to happen now because I've been diagnosed with scleroderma for 19 years now. But I was nothing like how I am now. I could barely walk. That's why I have a handicap sticker, because I couldn't walk from my car to the store door. I couldn't tie my own shoelaces. I couldn't zip up my pants. It used to hurt me so much to just try to use my fingertips in any way. I started doing stuff like connecting a hanger to my zipper to be able to pull it up, but my kids were the ones who helped me get dressed. They did a lot, and it was hard. It was really hard because they were little kids. I know it affected my daughter a lot. She has a lot of empathy for people, and she's extremely sensitive, and like I am, because she's seen her mother so sick. I don't want to get too deep into it right now because I'm going to get cut off from my iPhone, but that's just a little bit about me, and to tell you guys, explain about how I got sick. So that was back in 2002. And here we are now in 2021, and I ride bikes now, and I go to the gym, and I swim, and I am an advocate for the guardian ad litem, which means I advocate for children in the foster care system. Love my job, love my job. I have a dog boarding business, so I am physically active all the day, every day, and things really changed around for me. I'll explain to you guys in one of my next videos, not my next one, but down the line, about how everything changed in my life. I had a religious experience, whether you're religious or not, or you're just playing in energy, or whatever it is that you do or do not believe in. I know what I experienced, and if you guys are just like really paying attention to what I'm telling you happened to me, how I was in the beginning and then how I am now, something happened to me that made my life the way it is right now. So with that said, I plan on making another video tomorrow, and I'll be home tomorrow night, so I'll be able to work on my webcam, I'll be able to work on my video camera, and I got a new program to make videos, and I plan on taking some classes to learn how to make, so I can make videos better. I have lighting and everything at home. Thank you guys for coming. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell so when you get notified. Bye.